Hey, Kina Wife Mom Boss. Welcome back to another episode of the Kina Wife Mom Boss podcast. How are y'all doing out there? I hope you guys are doing well and taking full advantage of these nuggets that are being dropped in the podcast. We've had some amazing guests come on and share some of their stories with us. And this morning, me and my husband went to brunch and we were talking about some of the things that we have experienced in our relationship together over the past 21 years. We've been together for 21 years. We have four children together. And we've faced a lot of things going on and going through these 21 years together. And I began to think about some of the guests that we had on the show. And one of the guests we had was Felicia, and she was talking about transitions and love after divorce. And on the episode, I remember she was sharing with us some of the things that she was experiencing in her marriage and how she wanted to fight for and she wanted to hold on to it. And God was basically revealing to her that it was time to go. And it's something she didn't want to necessarily do. Nobody wants to go through a divorce process, right? But it was something that God was calling her to do. And so she went through her divorce process and she talked about transitioning and life after the divorce. And I shared in that podcast that our situations were kind of similar but different because where I wanted to walk away from my marriage, God was telling me no, it was time to stay. And so in that moment, like I had to transition my approach to my marriage. I had to ask God to change my mind, to renew my mind, to change my thinking and the way that I was showing up in my kingdom marriage because my mindset was on like being all done, but I had to honor God in my marriage. And she was talking about how she has to honor God in her divorce. And I was just like, you know what? It's so crazy because I had to honor God in my marriage in a situation that I didn't necessarily desire to be in. And I think in that season was where I really had to learn that whatever God's instructions for you are, I mean, it's not something that you had to learn. It's something that you already know, but you're heavily reminded, even if it's something that you don't desire or something that you don't necessarily want to be involved in or be a part of, like you still have to honor God when God gives you very specific directions to show up a certain way or to do a certain thing. And the scripture, Gray got to hold on to the scripture where it says that everything is working together for the good of those who love the Lord, because in the process of being in a place that you don't want to be in or having to do something that you don't necessarily like you're not like just jumping for joy to do it, but you know it's something that God called you to do and you want to honor God in that, you have to believe and remember that all things are working together for your good, even if you don't see it immediately, even if you don't see it right now, know that it's working together for your good. And then our next guest was talking about her book, I remember. And man, that book hit me like a ton of bricks because how many of us um are slapped in the face with a childhood trauma that we didn't realize that we needed to heal from. And so when she was talking in the book about, I remember she was revealing some of the things that she was feeling and revealing some of the things that she was going through. I thought that, man, that book was so empowering. I hope you guys went out and bought that book and read that book. That book was very empowering as she talks about her process of overcoming and liberation and the things that she felt like very real situations. It still gets me when she was talking about her molestation situation. And she said that she desired it essentially. That she desired it because it was something that she had expected. It was something that, you know, she had been through, something that she was dealing with often. So it was almost like a grooming to where she came to the point where she had expected for it to happen. And I thought, oh my gosh, like how many of us actually have dealt with this in a situation, but we can't talk about it because we feel ashamed about it. And so for me, that was so liberating. Y'all, excuse me, I'm messing with stuff on the computer. But for me, that was so liberating for her to be entirely honest and say that it was something that she dealt with because a lot of people will not confess that. And so for me, like I said, that ignited something in me because Listen, a lot of us out here have dealt with molestation, including myself. And I shared with her, I said at some point it was like I didn't resist it. And I had shame almost to the fact that I didn't resist it. And so when I read that, it was kind of liberating and it was kind of freeing. And I think in this season, it's so important that we do our best to work towards being liberated from every thought, from every trauma, from every experience that holds a negative, even an ounce of capacity in our hearts or in our mind. And so I remember for me, by Christine George, was the point of her being intentional about the healing that she needed to receive and that the healing that she needed to pour out. I love that book. The book was really, 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 really good. And then the last one I'm gonna talk about, y'all. The last one I'm gonna talk about. It was a couple of them. Love After Loss was your Anita, and she talked about life after losing her husband. That was a really good one for any wife who has gone through the process of losing a spouse. She poured her heart out. She told us what she experienced, and she gave us some wisdom, and she gave us some wisdom, and even for us who still have our husbands, that eye-opening statement of like when you put something up against death, it kind of changes your perspective of the arguments that you have or the things that you don't like about your spouse. Love After Loss was that episode that makes you really step back and take a second look at your marriage and be like we can do this. Like we can work this out. We can do this. Death is so permanent. Death is so permanent. Death is permanent. And I like that made me think like if something was to happen to my husband today or tomorrow, like did I honor God in my kingdom marriage? Did I do everything that God called me to do in my marriage? Did I show up the way that God called me to show up in my kingdom marriage? And then this last one was the importance of marital intimacy, which is such a sore topic because, ooh, I got a confession, girl. So whenever first of all, me and my husband were together for 21 years. We were only married for 13 and a half years. So there was a good time period there where we were not married. Um, but of course, we were still together. Funny story. I always talk to my kids about stuff, and I told them, I said, do not have sex out of marriage. It is not God's intention, it's not God's design. And baby, my kids are smart mouth, so they said, well, my son, he said, look who's talking. And we laughed about it because of course it's very true. But we laughed about it, but we also had a very serious conversation of me and my husband. We had sex out of wedlock and we had children out of wedlock. But just teaching my kids to do better. But his little smart mouth self, girl, he had to say something about the fact that we had children out of wedlock. But anyway, we had children out of wedlock, which just means that we were having intercourse out of wedlock. And once I got married, so crazy. Once I got married, I had a guilt and a shame of sex. It was like God is watching me. Like it was so crazy. It was the craziest thing that I started feeling guilt and shame when it came to marital intimacy with my now husband. And it was something that I had to process and I had to get over. And I know that some of it, dialing that back down to, I remember with Christine George, some of that was because of the molestation that I dealt with when I was younger that I was not healed from. We can sweep stuff under a rug all day long if we want to. But at some point, we're going to have to come face to face with the thing that we keep trying to avoid because God desires for us to be like completely healed. He's not going to allow that thing to just stay there forever and never be dealt with. It's a level of liberation that God wants us to have as kingdom women. And in order to have it, we have to deal with our problems, or our problems are going to deal with us. And so, what is something that you have not dealt with concerning a childhood trauma, concerning an issue in your marriage or issue in your household? What do you keep sweeping underneath the rug, hoping that it would just go away? That is something that you are going to have to deal with. This is a year of accountability and growth. And you are not necessarily always the one who caused the childhood trauma, but and this is, I'm pretty sure, has been heard multiple times. It is your responsibility to heal from it, because the wounds that we have, the bleeding that we do, even in moments where we don't know it or we don't realize it, we are bleeding on other people. We are bleeding on our spouses. We are bleeding on our children. We are bleeding in our jobs. We are bleeding in our churches. We're bleeding in our ministries. Like, those things that we haven't dealt with, they will pop up at the very least expected time, and you will begin to operate in a manner that is not in alignment with God, or you will begin to hurt others and sometimes not even realize that you hurt others because it is something that you haven't dealt with in yourself. It affects, like, the way that you show up, um, the energy that you carry, the mindset that you have, the words that you speak, those things affect everyone around us. It is beyond time to be accountable for our own healing journey. And sometimes that looks like really going before God and asking God, what haven't I healed from? Because he has the answer for you. It is going before God and asking God, what haven't you healed from? And being very intentional about dealing with that thing that you have not healed from. It's time to show up, girl. It's time to show up. But anyways, what I love about this podcast is that it helps us to remember that there are so many people out there that deal with the same situations that we dealt with, or have gone through just the things that we've gone through, because a lot of the times we'll begin to feel like we're by ourselves. Um, no, girl, you are not the only wife who has struggled um, finding her space, like her strength as a wife. You are not the only wife who has dealt with infidelity. You are not the only mother who struggles with your children. Like, you are not by yourself. And so the Kingdom Wife Mom Boss podcast is for a community of women who collectively just come together to pour into one another and to strengthen, encourage, and motivate one another through sharing our story and sharing our journey, because we got places to be, girl. We got stuff to do. Like, we ain't got time to be sitting here in unforgiveness. We ain't got time to be sitting here in childhood trauma. Like, we do not have the time to lollygag and unforgiveness and all of these other things that hinder us from growing to the place that God has called for us to be. Like, I want to see my Kingdom Wife Mom Bosses empowered on today. I want to see my Kingdom Wife Mom Bosses growing and healing and strengthened and showing up in spaces into capacity that they didn't even know that they can show up in. And so I'm going to just be dedicated at showing up here in this space for the Kingdom Wife Mom Boss podcast, meeting with everyone that I can meet with, and making sure that you guys are getting the healing and the transition and that you need. I also really look forward to sharing just more of my journey and more of my experience with you. And I can't remember if I said that on camera or off camera, but I was talking about, like, literally the devil was in my face telling me that he was going to take my marriage, and I was basically telling him to take it. And so that experience that made me step up and become the prayer warrior wife, henceforth the fortified wife challenge. That experience is something that I want to share a little more with y'all as time comes. I just want to make sure that I am being completely transparent and just letting y'all know, listen, being Kingdom Wife Mom Boss is not about being perfect. Being a Kingdom Wife Mom Boss is not about having it all together. It is not about having the best of anything. It is about being, first of all, kingdom, being a wife, being a mom, and being a boss, and showing up to the best of your capability in all of these areas and making sure that you are putting forth the intention and putting forth the effort to thrive in that area. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to show up to anyone's expectation. Ugh, expectation to anyone's expectation of you as a Kingdom Wife Mom Boss. Can we just talk about the weights that the world throw on you to show up a certain way or to be a certain way or to have perfection? That's funny because we were talking about that at brunch as well. We were talking about I was pregnant all 2022. I was pregnant most of 2022. And in that year, like, I don't know if it was because I had so much going on or because I was tired. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but like, I used to be that parent. Like, I'm gonna sign up for all the volunteer stuff for school and I'm gonna buy all of the stuff for the classroom and I'm gonna like just show up to the level that I think that like would be pleasing to my kids' teachers. Baby, in 2022, I quit. This was fourth child. I was sick. I was exhausted. Found out that my mom was sick. Like we had all of this stuff going on. And in that moment, I had to choose to be at peace with the fact that I couldn't show up the way that I had been showing up. And I felt like it could have been my own guilt, but I felt like teachers probably gave me a little bit of side eye when I did not show up to a certain level or a certain capacity. But for my peace, I had to choose to not carry the weight of their expectations with me on a daily basis because trying to show up to that capacity, but also show up in all the other places that I needed to show up, like it just wasn't going to work. So it was a moment of me having to choose that I was going to um only show up to the places that God was calling for me to show up. And so that was just a hard decision that I had to make in that time to just make sure that I was able to do what I needed to do in all the places that I needed to be. And I feel like like as a keen wife, my boss, you have to evaluate often to just sit down with your planner, sit down with your hand God your planner and just ask God like, hey, where am I supposed to show up? Like where am I supposed to be showing up? What's going to happen? What do I need to do? How do I honor you in this situation? I'm telling you, for me, it really is just a big thing of making sure that I honor God every day in the decisions that I make and the ways that I show up. And so adding to um being accountable for your healing this year and making sure that you're overcoming those things and overcoming those barriers that stop you from really growing and thriving. Handing out your planner is clutch. Like handing out your planner, knowing your position, knowing your space, knowing where you're supposed to be, knowing where you're supposed to show up, man, that is empowering because then you know, like it's an identity thing. Like you know who you are, you know where you're supposed to be, you know where you have impact, and you know that wherever you are, God is going to meet you there because that's where He called for you to be. So, girl, this year we are healing, we are overcoming, we are being intentional about our spaces and our places and people and things. We are handing out our planner so that we can see the thriving, the growth, all the rest of 2025 and the years to come. Make sure that you stay tuned to the podcast so that we can continue to connect over various topics from Kingdom Women who are grateful to be able to come on and share their story with you. And they're sharing their story with you because they want you to overcome, they want you to heal, like they want to see you thrive as well. Stay in this space, stay in this place, and we are going to continue to connect and have those kingdom conversations that need to be had between us as Kingdom Wife Mom Boss. All right, we'll check with you guys later. Bye.